Broken mirror shards glimmered faintly under the dim light, scattered across the cold marble floor like fallen stars. Each piece caught a fragment of the world around it, and a fragment of her. Tawwan stepped forward slowly, her bare feet careful not to touch the jagged edges. Her breathing was steady, but her eyes carried the weight of years. She lowered herself onto the old leather sofa, its cushions sagging with age, just like the heart she carried. From her pocket, she pulled out a phone, an old model, scratched, the screen webbed with thin cracks. It was a relic she could not let go of because inside was the only proof she had ever truly existed. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked it. She opened the photo library. A girl's face appeared on the screen. Not a flawless beauty, not the kind who would turn every head in a crowded room. But there was something about her, something that drew you in, a quiet grace. A warmth behind the dark, vibrant eyes, a presence that felt real. Tawwan's lips curved upward into a faint smile. But it was the kind of smile that ached, a smile that carried mourning within it. That girl was her, the real her. This was the face of Tawan Amarin, the one who should have been known as the eldest daughter of the Amaran family. Not Aira. The story of Tawwan was one buried beneath years of silence. The Amaran family was not just a household. It was an empire. One main branch, 3 sub-branches, each with its own pride, its own ambitions. Wealth, power, influence. It was the kind of family where bloodlines were spoken of like titles. Tawwan belonged to the 2nd sub-branch, the daughter of Father Jarrett. Her branch stood just beneath Father Nawatson's seniority. Her mother was a woman whose love burned too fiercely. So fiercely, it consumed her. She worshipped Tawwan's father. She would have done anything to keep him close, anything to please him, even if it meant losing herself entirely. When she became pregnant, it was the happiest time of her life. Tawwan's father, convinced that the child she carried was a boy, was finally attentive. He spoke of the future, of inheritance, of the family name, of the boy who would bring honor to their branch. At that time, Aira's father had not yet married, and so the path to influence seemed open, but fate can be cruel. The moment Tawwan's first cry filled the room, her father's face turned cold. He didn't hold her. He didn't smile. Without a single word, he turned and left the room. To him, she was nothing more than a disappointment. Her mother's joy shattered that very day. She fell into depression, yet she clung desperately to the hope that she could win him back. Every attempt failed, and then the final blow came. He took another woman as his second wife. That woman was pregnant, with the boy who would later be Jarrett. Tawwan's mother's love twisted into something darker. She tried more than once to harm the other woman. In the end, Tawwan's father could no longer tolerate it. He confined her to another villa far from the Amaran estate. From that day on, it was as if she had been erased. No one in Amaran spoke her name. It was forbidden. And so, the truth of Tawwan's existence faded. Aira, Nawat, Jarrett, Yala, none of them knew they had a cousin. Even the Amaran patriarch, the man who ruled over them all, had no idea he had a granddaughter. Because on the day she was born, Jarrett's father had spread a lie. He told the family Tawwan was born prematurely and had died. When Jarrett was born, the house celebrated. Finally, a son to stand against Nawat's father's claim to the inheritance. But the joy did not last, because when Aira was born, everything changed. The other children dimmed like stars before the morning sun. Aira's grandfather adored her openly, shamelessly. The patriarch himself placed her at the center of his world. Every smile, every gift, every blessing went to Aira. Meanwhile, Tawwan lived in the shadows. Then, one day, the man who had been absent for years appeared at the villa. In his hand, a small teddy bear. It was the first and last gift Tawwan ever received from her father. That night he stayed. He shared a bed with Tawwan's mother once again. The next morning, her mother seemed different. For the first time in years, she looked at Tawwan with warmth. Tawwan's small heart leapt with hope. Perhaps now she thought she would finally have both her parents. But the truth was colder than she could imagine. Her father had given her mother an order: raise Tawan to be like Aira, mold her into Aira's shadow, so that one day she could return to Amaran and win the old master's affection. From that day on, her life was no longer her own. At just 5 years old, Tawan was forced into silence for over a year and a half. Why? Because Aira had started babbling at 18 months. Tawan had to follow the same timeline. Her mother hired a teacher, not to nurture her mind, but to train her voice, her vocal cords, her tongue. Every sound she made had to match Aira's tone and rhythm. Slowly, painfully, Tawan forgot the sound of her own voice. Years passed. She was not allowed to speak freely. Every gesture, every word, every smile, rehearsed, practiced, perfected. Not for her sake, but for the sake of a plan she had never agreed to. And so, the girl in the photograph, the one smiling faintly through the cracks of the old phone, she became a stranger to herself. But no matter how much her voice was taken, no matter how much her identity was erased, the mirror shards on the floor still reflected the truth. Tawan Amarin was more than a copy. She was more than a shadow. One day, she would reclaim her voice. One day, she would be heard. Because silence was never her choice. It was a prison built around her. Brick by brick, word by word, she was never allowed to speak. But inside that silence, she had been listening. Listening to every cruel laugh, every whisper behind closed doors. Every time someone said she was not enough, and in that quiet, she learned. She learned how people reveal themselves when they think you cannot speak back. She learned where the cracks in their walls are. One day, she would slip through those cracks. When she returned, it would not be as someone's shadow. It would not be as a mistake, or as a name they once buried. She would walk into the Amaran estate, not to beg for their acceptance, but to show them the daughter they had thrown away had built herself into something they could no longer ignore. And when that day came, her voice would not tremble. It would not falter. It would be strong, clear, and unforgettable. One day, the walls that kept her hidden will crumble. One day, every eye in Amaran will turn to see her, and they will not see a shadow, but the woman forged from every wound, every scar, every word left unspoken. She will stand in the place they said she would never belong. And she will belong there, not because they finally give her permission, but because she took it. If Tawwan's story moved you, if you believe no voice should ever be silenced, then stay with me for the next chapter. Like, share, and subscribe, so you'll be here when her voice finally breaks through the walls.